Greetings and welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm John F. Harrison. I'm a certified financial planner and ordained minister, president of Aspire Financial Advisors, and I'll be your tour guide through all things financial on this show, whether the topic is the economy, your retirement, paying for college, managing your investments, dealing with debt. If it affects your money, it affects your life, and we'll talk about it here. We'll be covering only one primary topic on each episode so that we can go as deep as you need us to go. In this episode, we're going to talk about your automobile, your ride, your wheels, whatever you drive, whether it's an SUV, a crossover, a truck, or just a normal car. I'm going to use the word car to mean any and all of those things. Whatever you drive, it is probably the most expensive piece of personal property that you have. So we're going to talk about how to get the most use and the most enjoyment for the least amount of money out of your vehicle. Before we go there, we need to pause for a quick break, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. Let's talk about cars. We all have different feelings about them. And for some people, a car is just a tool, like a microwave or a snowblower. It's an appliance to get you from point A to point V, and people really don't have any more feelings about them than that. But for other people, a car is a gateway to a meaningful experience. It's the freedom of the road. It's the adventure of a road trip and all that that represents. For other people, it's sporting gear. It's the equipment they use in fun recreational activities. It could be autocross, it could be road rallies, driving schools, drag racing, club racing, all these things. I've done a couple of those things, and I gotta say the adrenaline rush can be a little habit forming. And for some, a car is a personal accessory that says something about them, what they value, what their personality is like, what they've achieved. So cars mean different things to different people. But one thing we can all agree on is that cars are expensive. They're expensive to buy, they're expensive to operate and to own. And it's getting more costly all the time. And I mean more than just those $90 fill-ups we've all been enduring at the gas station. Here's some numbers from Experian that I want to share with you as we start, just to see how you compare to the average person with a car. As of the third quarter of 2021, here are the stats on cars in America. 59% of people who bought a used car financed it. 40% of people who bought a new car financed it. And 85% of all car purchases were financed, were bought with borrowed money. Now, according to Experian, here's how that breaks down. The average monthly payment, about $609 a month for a new car and $465 for a used one. The average loan amount was $37,280 for a new car and about $25,900 for a used one. Interest rates, 4% for a new one, 7.98% for a used one. And the loan term, the amount of time people were supposed to be making their payments, 69 months for a new car, 66 months for a used. Both of those are over 5 years, pushing 6 in the case of a new car. Of all those car loans, 7% of them right now are in some sort of workaround, a hardship workaround, because they've fallen behind, they can't catch up on the payments, and they need some sort of concession from the lender to get things right again. And 1/3 of all car loans have negative equity, meaning the guy driving the car owes more on that car than the car is worth. The average American will buy 9.4 cars over the course of a lifetime. So over time, this car thing is a really expensive habit. In fact, car debt is the second largest kind of debt that Americans have, kind of consumer debt that Americans have, second only to college loans. So cars are a big expense, and a lot of people are struggling with that expense. 1 in 3 has negative equity, and 7% is in hardship workaround. If you want to do better than the average person does, then you must do something different than what the average person does. Here then are 5 or 6 things that I'd like to share with you just so that you can take a different approach and have your car give you more enjoyment, more service, and cost you less money. Point number 1 I'd like to make: don't buy new. One of the hidden costs of car ownership is depreciation. And I say hidden because it's not like you get a bill in the mail for depreciation and you have to write the depreciation check. So we don't see it, but it is something that we pay. Depreciation is how a car loses value after you buy it. The typical used car, the typical new car, loses 20% of its value in its first year. Big vehicles like pickup trucks and full-sized SUVs can lose even more, typically 30% in the first year. And they'll lose fully half their value by the end of 5 years. Now, if you buy used, somebody else has already taken that big depreciation hit for you. It's just financially a little smarter. As a culture, Americans have had a long-standing bias against used cars, and it dates from back in the day when cars didn't last very long. A 100,000-mile car was all used up and didn't really have any anticipated future life. And the feeling was that people who were well off and doing okay bought new cars, and only poor people bought used cars. And that bias that we got from the 50s, 60s, and early 70s has stuck with a lot of people. And so we feel somehow a little less than if we're buying a pre-owned car. But the numbers don't lie, and it is simply smarter to let someone else take that biggest chunk of loss through depreciation rather than taking it yourself. So point number 1, don't buy new. Used cars today last longer. They can look great for many years. I've got a friend who drove his BMW 3 Series for 465,000 miles and then sold it. So cars last a lot longer now than they used to. No shame at all in buying used, and it's financially better for you. Point number 2 that I'd like to make is don't finance the car. A standard principle of finance is that you don't finance depreciating assets. You know, if you buy a living room couch at a furniture store, and instead of paying cash for that couch, you finance it on the furniture store's credit card, the couch is worth practically nothing in a year or two, and you're making payments on it that inflate the price beyond what the actual sale price was. The same is true for a car. Paying it off over time with interest means you ultimately pay way more for the car than the actual price you agreed on in the purchase and sales agreement. Remember the average stats we looked at just a moment ago? The average new car transaction is $42,307 as of the last quarter of 2021. The average person puts down $5,500, it's about 13%, and finances the rest for that 66 or 69 months. And those payments, combined with your down payment, totaled $47,000 and change, or $5,000 more than what you think you paid for the car. So doing that with something that depreciates is one of the reasons why so many borrowers are upside down. They owe more on the car than it's worth. They're underwater is the slang. And It becomes a problem if certain things happen. If the car is in an accident and gets totaled, the insurance company writes you a check for less than you owe the bank, that's a problem. If the car is stolen, that's a problem. Even if you just need to trade the car in, if you owe more than the car is worth, then you have that negative equity you have to do something with, and what most people do is they roll it over into their next loan, and it snowballs. They get deeper and deeper and deeper in the hole. If you pay cash for a car, you never have a payment, you cannot have negative equity, and so you avoid that whole problem. Another problem with financing, especially for longer term notes, is you reach what I call the pain period. And the pain period is where you are when your new car is out of warranty, but you're not out of payments. Now you're paying your monthly payment on top of all maintenance and repairs. And that gets so expensive, people get stressed, they start to hate the car, they feel like they can't afford what is really normal maintenance and repairs, and then they're out looking for another car to repeat the process and roll all their negative equity over. So if you pay cash in the first place, you can avoid that whole can of worms and just be in so much better of a financial position. Point 3, you want to get the most out of your car and the most enjoyment out of it. Skip the dealer. Since you're buying used, and since you're not financing, you don't need the car dealer. You can buy your next vehicle from a private party seller rather than from a dealer. Now, some people will say, wait a minute, why would I do that? If I buy from the dealer, it's more convenient. He's got 50, 60, 70, 200 used cars there for me to look at all in one place. He's going to have some kind of warranty on the used car. A private party seller won't have that. But here's the thing. The biggest determinant as to how reliable and long-lasting your car is going to be is how it was maintained from new. Did the original owner change the oil every 5,000 miles or every 15? Those sort of things make a difference as to how long the car will last for the second owner. And you don't have that information when you buy from a dealer. You don't have any of the background on the car. Sure, you may have a Carfax report, but you don't have the history of what was done to the car and when. But when you buy from a private party, the right private party, they'll have records, and they will be able to tell you everything that was done and when it was done, and you'll have a much better sense of whether this will be a good car for you to invest in and have a long-term ownership experience that you will like. So skip the dealer and hold that thought. We're going to take a short break and take care of some business, pay some bills, and we'll come back in just a minute and tell you some more things you can do to change the way a car affects your finances. See you in a minute.
The Well Jamaican Restaurant, located at 55 Mazio Drive in Randolph, Mass., where good food and fellowship meet daily. Check out our variety of fresh and tasty entrees and sides from our menu or the website, thewellja.com, like our jerk chicken, oxtails and rice, seafood, desserts, and more. With our drinks and juices made fresh daily, you have the option to dine in or take out. We can also cater your special event, or you can book our private dining room and let us host your special event. At the Well Jamaican Restaurant, we pride ourselves on providing superior quality food and beverages, and of course, great customer service. Next time you're in the mood for Jamaican cuisine, meet us at the Well Jamaican Restaurant. Become part of the family. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. The Well, where good food and fellowship meet daily.
Welcome back to The Bottom Line. We've been talking about your car, and so far we have said things you can do differently than other people typically do, that you have a financially better and more rewarding experience with your car. We've said so far, don't buy new, don't finance it and skip the dealer. All of those things will help you, but there's more you can do. And the next thing I want to talk about is find an indie mechanic. And what I mean by that is a lot of people feel that when their car needs service, they need to go back to the dealer they bought the car from, or at least a dealer of that brand car, to get the service done. Probably the most expensive way to get a car worked on. There's a couple things going on at a dealership that you should know about. Number one, they have enormous overhead. That big, beautiful showroom with all those cars in it and that huge, impressive service bay that they've got costs them a fortune. So when you bring your car in for an oil change for $100, they're not looking just to do an oil change on your car. They're going to scour that car for everything either that's really broken or might be broken, or that they might convince you will someday break and try to get you to deal with that thing now. They're always going to upsell you. An independent mechanic has less incentive to do that, won't always be pressuring you with, oh, we found this, you need to fix this. Also, the work at an independent mechanic will simply cost you less. The hourly labor rate will be smaller at an indie shop because he doesn't have that huge showroom that he has to support financially. And many car dealers today don't make a lot of money on the sale of cars themselves. Where they get their money is financing, parts, and service. Well, you're going to skip financing, and if you go to an indie rather than the dealer for parts and service, you will pay a substantially smaller labor rate, and your car will cost you less to maintain. Something else that an indie will do or may do that a car dealer simply will not is let you buy OEM parts. OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. These that make the parts your car was built with. Now, they make the part generically and then brand it with the name of the manufacturer they're selling it to. And when they brand it with that name, that manufacturer name, the part goes up in price. I'll give you an example. I'm about to put control arms on my car, which is a suspension component. Now, the ones that come marked BMW cost about $300 each. They are Lemfurter parts. That's the company that actually made them. I can buy them direct from Lemfurter for about $85 each. Huge difference versus $300. An indie shop that knows you want to save a little bit of money may let you buy original equipment manufacturer parts, OEM parts. He marks them up a little bit because he does not get the same sort of wholesale price when he buys those as he does the branded parts. But if he buys OEM parts and marks them up a typical 20%, that's still going to be way cheaper than getting the parts that you're forced to get at the dealership, which are the branded ones. And there's no difference in quality or construction because they're made by the exact same people. So for both of those reasons, getting an independent mechanic can save you a lot of money versus using the dealer. So find a good independent mechanic. I would also say, just to avoid problems, avoid the quick lube type oil change places, and don't get mechanical work done at the big, let's say, the tire chains or the muffler chains. Use a tire chain to get wheels and tires and nothing else, and use an independent shop that knows your kind of car to get mechanical work done. When you go to an indie, you'll know the individual person that's working on your car, and they'll know you and get familiar with your car. And over time, that's just a much satisfying arrangement than going to a big dealer and there's always somebody else working on it and you never really see them or meet them and that sort of thing. So find a good indie. Now, one of the objections that will come up is when you talk about don't buy new, people will worry about used cars because they'll have higher maintenance costs, or at least that's what people feel, versus a new car with a warranty. And that brings us to point number 5, which is it's about total cost and not just maintenance and repairs. Older cars compared to newer ones will have a lower purchase price. They will have lower sales tax because that's a percentage of the purchase price. They will have lower excise tax every year because excise tax in Massachusetts, for instance, is $25 per thousand of value. So a car that you purchased for $10,000 will have a lower excise tax than one you purchased for 40 or 45 or 50. So lower purchase price, lower sales tax, lower excise tax, lower insurance costs, all on the used car. Now, on the other side, you will probably have higher maintenance costs and repair costs on the used car than you would on a newer one. But think about total costs, not just maintenance costs. And here's the short rule. Maintenance and repairs on a used car are always less money than payments on a new one. You're adopting a new approach to these things and avoiding the whole payments on all those other high costs in exchange for having to pay for some maintenance and repairs that you wouldn't on a brand new car. But maintenance on an older car is always less expensive than payments on a new one. It's just the way that it works. By the way, let me give you a little bit about the difference between maintenance and repairs. Maintenance is what you do to avoid repairs. Maintenance is what you do to keep things from breaking. Repairs are what you do after they've broken. It's a general rule. Maintenance costs less than repairs and saves you the aggravation of things going wrong at an inopportune time. So keep up with the maintenance. Everyone does their oil changes. They may not do their coolant system flushes. They may not do their brake fluid flushes. They may not keep up with a lot of the maintenance as long as something isn't broken. But if you do, then your car will break less frequently and you will pay less overall to maintain the car if you stay with maintenance and have fewer repairs. And speaking of maintenance and repairs, there's one other issue I want to bring up. And that's this fallacy that if you have an old car, you can end up having a repair that's not worth doing because the repair costs more than the car is worth. Example, if the transmission dies in your car and your car is 10 years old and is worth $3,500 and the transmission replacement is going to be $6,000, a lot of people will say, wait a minute, why would I do that? It's worth more than the car. I shouldn't do this. Time for me to get a new car. But that's kind of a false way of thinking. It's the value of the repair versus the value of the car is irrelevant. What's relevant is what would it cost you to buy an equivalent car. We got that it's not worth it idea from insurance companies. And they're doing a different thing than we're doing. An insurance company looks at your car and says your car is worth $8,000 and you're going to have a $7,000 repair and it's probably going to go over budget, and we just want to get out of this for the smallest possible check. So they'll total your car, and that will be the end of that. They get out of it for the smallest possible check. They have a contract with you to give you money, and they want to give you as little as they have to. But as the owner of a car, you're not thinking like an insurance company. You don't really have to care what the repair costs compared to the value of the car. You only have to think about what will this repair cost if I don't do it. Can I go out and get an equivalent car, a functionally equivalent car, and spend less money to do that? As long as that's not the case, then it's worth repairing the car if you still like it, regardless of the actual value of the car. The value of the car is only an issue if you're selling it or trading it. If you're driving the car and enjoying it, it really doesn't matter what the car is worth to you. So I'll give you one more thing as we start to wind up our thinking today, and this will be point number 6 that I'll talk about, is you might want to learn to turn your own wrenches. We talked about how much money an independent mechanic might save you, $30, $40 per hour of labor time or more. But one of the things that turns out to be kind of fun is realizing that a lot of the routine things you can do yourself. You get a couple of hand tools, you get a mechanic's manual for your car, and suddenly You're doing your own oil changes, and you're fixing your own leaky gaskets, and you're doing so many things that you used to just automatically pay someone to do. It can be fun, it can be a hobby, it can give you pride of ownership, and it will save you a fortune over having to go to a pro every time some little need arises in your car. Those 6 things taken together will really cut significant money off of what it costs you to drive your car, own your car, and because it's not bankrupting you every year, then you'll enjoy that car a whole lot more. Hey, we're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back, we'll wrap things up in just a minute.
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Welcome back, and we're about to wrap things up and summarize where we've been. You may be thinking at this point, as you consider the 6 bulleted points that we talked through, you may be thinking, but that's not what most people do. And that's the point. You don't want to do what most people do, because with their cars, most people are in a bit of a mess. And so the popular thing is almost never the wise thing. You know, those of you who are Bible readers know there's plenty of Bible for that. Woe unto you when all men think well of you, or, you know, there's a path that's wide and popular and leads to destruction, and there's a path that's straight and narrow and leads to life, and few people find that one. All those kind of ideas point to the fact that the popular thing is usually not the wise thing, and so it is with cars. What most people do does not serve their financial interests well. So if you will avoid buying new, if you will avoid financing, if you'll get a relationship with a good indie mechanic, if you will learn to turn your own wrench, if you like, if you will skip the dealer, and if you will think in terms of total costs rather than just maintenance costs, the bottom line is you end up with more money in your pocket. Now, you may say to yourself, but I've already got a payment. I'm already in this situation, and that's okay. Just work to pay that off and then keep that car. Set aside the money that used to be your payment into a savings account for maintenance and repairs. And then maintenance and repairs will never shock you or hurt you, and you can just keep that car going and get off the payment bandwagon. The amount of change you need to make in your situation may seem overwhelming at first, but I promise you, you can get there from here. And that's the bottom line. Greetings and welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm John F. Harrison. I'm a certified financial planner and ordained minister, president of Aspire Financial Advisors, and I'll be your tour guide through all things financial on this show, whether the topic is the economy, your retirement, paying for college, managing your investments, dealing with debt. If it affects your money, it affects your life.